which technically means good morning, but it also means whenever you're starting your day, starting work, whatever it is. That's what they say in Japan. It's a little hat tip to Sumie Hasegawa Collins, who is the illustrator. Frankly, he conceived of the whole idea in the first place. Oh, this is not my very well-worn copy. There's a nice copy back there, but I want people to use it and chew it up. That's what I do to my books. And not literally chew, but we are going to be talking about something you can literally chew today. But first, crush and sniff. I have my handy dandy, my spearmint, which is still just fantastically growing. And if you're breathing to activate the vagus nerve with your O sound, or any sound that activates the nerve that connects the head to the body and the heart and the organs and all of that stuff. But I also have a little bunch of thyme. It's starting to get very dry, and thyme, of course, doesn't have as sweet a fragrance as mints, or rosemary has a pungent. This is slightly different, which is why it's so great for cooking. Really good on potatoes, I think, and mashed potatoes and all that sort of thing. But it's invigorating, and so you're getting it into your organs, and you're just cleaning out the brain fog and all of that kind of stuff. So very good. And I have so many people have these fantastic green drinks with lots of chlorophyll, which we know now is so good for the body. I've been a big chlorophyll pusher for a long time. So, and a Shakespeare pusher. So the line of the week is super simple this week to get the brain sharp, so you don't have to buy all those memory supplements. You can get some herbs, breathe them in, say a line or O or whatever you want. The summer's flower is to the summer sweet. That's from Sonnet 94. That's so easy. The summer's flower is to the summer sweet. And we are talking about a flower, also an herb, maybe a couple of other classifications with Hannah Sylvester, the district herbalist. So we'll bring her on. Toot sweet. Ohio gozaimasu, Hannah. Because we're in different time zones, so we had to find a term that embrace all of it. So there you go. So today we're going to be talking about clover, which has all kinds of songs written about it, but I think it's one of those plants that is so neglected, because you see it in grass all over. And once I became aware of it, I was like, Shakespeare is everywhere. So is it good for you too?
Oh, it's just lovely. I mean, it's one of it really is a joy to see it growing, because it's got those lovely pinky purpley flowers,
or white.
Oh, white, yeah. And I mean, it's part of, whether it's the white clover or the red clover. It's part of what's called the Fabaceae family, which is actually the pea or the legume family.
Really? Oh my goodness. No, we didn't put Latin in Shakespeare because there was Carl Linnaeus doesn't come along until I think the 18th century, right? Early 1700s. Yeah, to do a sort of Latin system for everybody. So everybody had their own Latin system. And so it wasn't cohesive at all. I mentioned that in the book.
Complete sense. Yeah. And I mean, in terms of it's kind of human uses. Well, actually, no, let's go back to the animal uses first. I mean, one of the things that you'll notice if you see clover growing anywhere, whether it's the red clover or the white clover, is the fact that bees love it. It's the real nature of clover flowers, regardless of what they are, is that they are sweet and they are full of nectar. So that fits beautifully in with your quote. It really does, because they, in terms of attracting bees to your lawn or to your garden, they're one of those really vital plants that we can grow, and get real good benefit from it, really.
So you can use clover as ground cover. I've seen that, but it's too short to put in a little bouquet, right? Or do hummingbirds like it? Hummingbirds don't generally go close to the ground, do they? I mean, but
Oh, I
full
don't
of
know.
nectar, that would, to me, be a big attractor for a hummingbird. Maybe if you're a nut, you can plant a little pot of clover up high to give it your hummingbirds a little treat. Like, hey, look, guys, it's on our level. Then you'll have a whole bunch of them. Anyways, bees and hummingbirds have that fast wing sound that sounds almost like a little motorboat to me sometimes. They're so funny. But anyway, okay. So yes, people use and animal use.
Yeah, so I mean, certainly over here in the UK, it's it's something that the bees very much enjoy. I mean, it's something that you would also find in some sort of in some commercial animal feeds as well. So you can find it instead of hay mix for horses and things like that. But it's one of those ones you have to be a little bit careful of. From an animal perspective, I think it was sheep grazing in Australia, grazing on red clover that were found that it affected their fertility.
Really?
Because of the chemical, because of the isoflavones and the compounds that it contains. So kind of for human use, traditionally, that never really came into it. So certainly, I mean, it's the red clover that's used medicinally. The white clover isn't used. So it's the what we call sort of trifolium pratense, trifolium three-leaved. And historically, it was always used more so for it was used as an expectorant to help to clear phlegm. That's certainly something you'll see in a lot of the sort of the older sort of Gerard Culpeper texts. That's fallen off the wayside a little bit as the years have gone by. And then sort of as time went on, it was termed more as what's called an alterative. And sometimes historically, alteratives were also called blood cleansers or blood purifiers.
Oh, wow.
And what that meant was that it kind of had a place as part of a wider, not a wider protocol, but like a wider strategy or something to basically help the body to remove waste products. So it's unusual because most of the herbs in that field are normally bitter, but this isn't. This is actually quite sweet. But it still has an alterative action. So where red clover is used nowadays medicinally is for like really chronic sort of purulent skin conditions like acne and kind of boils and psoriasis and
Wow.
things like that needs an element of movement to get the healing going. So we'd use it in kind of what we would term stagnant and sort of congested body states. And then you kind of combine them with things like diuretics and lymphatics to kind of move the waste products out.
Right. Well, it's interestingly, red clover is not mentioned in Shakespeare. Red wheat is mentioned. So, but we'll have to get to that when we get to our grain shows. But the clover, green clover, he says, and it's in the same line of Henry V that we mentioned when we were talking about Burnet. The even mead that erst brought sweetly forth the freckled cowslip, burnet, and green clover, which was the light of the week. But there's also a long-standing misconception that honey-stalks was classified as clover. And when I was researching the book, there was a Notes and Queries article by, I think her name was Rosalind, perfectly named, Rosalind Barber from Goldsmiths University, who said honey-stalks wasn't clover. It was often classified as clover. And the reason is Samuel Johnson, who was writing a dictionary, just made it up. He couldn't find it. So he just made it up. And I think that happened a lot in Shakespeare when they couldn't figure out what he was talking about. They just decided what it is. So we turned, and so the line for honey stalks is then baits to fish or honey stalks to sheep. So it is something that they graze on, and I put it in grasses, which is something that we haven't even discussed yet. Grasses and all the different grasses, and grasses has a huge amount of lines, but there's a big sort of a modern misconception. They didn't have lawns the way we have lawns. They had, clover and all kinds of things that manage much more economically than lawns, which are a huge water suck and a huge economical and environmental energy suck, actually. But grasses then were just cut down wild grasses of all different kinds. That's how they did them. And so people, sort of impose their modern understanding of stuff onto whatever Shakespeare's saying, which is fine. But just to clarify, honey-stalks is not clover. It is in the grasses family. So I always thought that doing a book about the plants was a nice, benign subject, but no, there's arguments about that too. So
there's always arguments about plants.
Is there arguments in the herbalist world about stuff? Do you guys
in the botanical world, plants will often shift botanical family quite regularly.
Really?
Yeah.
Of their own volition, or?
So I mean, even plants can sometimes be because you've got, instead of in terms of botanical Latin, you've got the first and the second names. So for example, rosemary has been Rosmarinus officinalis for quite some time, until it was decided that rosemary didn't need its own genus and it was actually a sage. So now it's Salvia rosmarinus.
Oh my God. I don't like you guys anymore. I'm going over to this family. Wow. Well, I kind of like it from a metaphorical standpoint that it's in the sage family, because sage also doubles as wisdom, but that's pretty funny. So you see, you rely on something and this is true, and then it shifts. So the only constant is change. There you go. However, the line of the week for this week is not going to change. The summer's flower is to the summer sweet. So thank you, sweet Hannah. And we will be back next time to talk about yet another herb. Don't forget to breathe. Bye.